Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Can I Have a Word with You? Deep into season two. Bruce Pulver, author, Above the Chatter, Our Words Matter, speaker, podcaster, host and guest, all kinds of cool stuff like that. Just trying to spread out some positivity and some help people pull potential out of themselves. And with my awesome co host, Heather Carter. How are you today, Heather?
I am great. Very
Heather's
good. Yeah.
also an author, right? Soul-Selfie,
Yep.
Soul-Selfie hashtag no filter,
No
unfiltered,
filter.
no
No
filter,
filter.
soiree leader. And that's just awesome. You just go out, you park yourself in groups of people that are interested in just getting vulnerable and talking about, the messiness and working through things. And you lead by example. You kind of say, I'll go first. And so if your organization or somebody that's looking for any kind of program like that, man, look up Heather. Look her up. Contact with her. I know she's does an awesome job.
Well, gosh, you can tee me up pretty good there.
Well, I know it's true. I know I've seen your work. I've done 2 seasons of podcasts with you. They're never super planned. We kind of pick
Nope.
a word. We talk about what it has meant to us in our lives. Oftentimes it's in the struggle. What have we not suffered from, but what have we learned from in a struggle? And how do we maybe encourage some folks to maybe take a first step? Because we all believe in action. I act on. It's got the definition in it. So what are we going to talk about today, Heather?
Well, we're landing on the word confidence today. And just based on what you were just saying, I think it's important to remind people that we do have confidence in God. We have confidence in what plans He has for us. We also know that there are times where we struggle with that. And so we don't want, at least I don't want people to feel like we've got this all figured out and we're just we're doing this because we're confident in who Bruce and Heather are. We're coming to people and bringing these words because we know what it's like to struggle. We know what it's like to be able to overcome some of those struggles and have confidence in God and not in ourselves. So you and I talked about maybe centering this confidence topic around David in the
Yeah.
Bible, who defeated Goliath as a small boy,
Yeah.
and kind of where that confidence came from, what we can learn from him. I certainly learn a lot from the things that I've had to overcome,
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than the things that came easy for me.
Oh, absolutely. And we were thinking about that. We were thinking about it in its first Samuel 17, verse 45.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably won't get the whole story correct, but David was called to battle against this, legendary fighter, right? And what had David done? He had just used, stones and a slingshot and sort of picked off, little animals and, used them to feed himself and to just kind of learn that skill. But he had never stepped into that ring. He never did. But he took the calling that God had put on him and believing, he had to probably power up for that, believing that he was not going into that battle alone. And I think that's one of the things that helps me in confidence is, when we feel like we found a place where we are doing God's purpose through us, that sort of changes the game. And not everyone has that. So that's where, sometimes we have a hard time with our own confidence. But let me just read this verse 45, 1 Samuel 17, from the contemporary English version. It says, David answered, "You've come out to fight me with a sword and a spear and a dagger, but I've come out to fight you in the name of the Lord all-powerful. He is the God of Israel's army, and you have insulted him too." So he didn't come out just with a slingshot. He came out with a calling. And, I think there's been a lot of times in my life where my confidence has really challenged me, whether it was in, I don't know, a sporting event, whether it was in accepting a new job. Excuse me. Do I have the skills? Do I have what it takes to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's been a struggle. But I think stepping in without knowing the outcome, but knowing that God's with us, or we pray before, give us the strength, give us the courage. I think really, I know that helps me. I'll turn that over to you. Let me know what you're thinking.
Well, I was, one of the things that comes to my mind is a friend of mine always says to me, she'll say, I'll say, I know I need to do this, but I'm scared. And she'll just say, then do it afraid. Sometimes you just have to do it afraid, trusting that God's got you in it. Because just because you're called to do something doesn't mean you're going to be fear free. I'm sure David, I'm sure. What'd you say?
Give me an example of that, because I think that'll help. Where has it been where maybe you've stepped in, maybe it's your professional work, or just some sort of example where you felt that, because I've got one, but I'll just go first and I'll then go.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. Well, for me, I've done a lot of sales presentations, my entire career. And, the first one was very difficult. They say you can't do a great talk until you do a good one. You can't do a good one until you do an okay one, and you can't do an okay one until maybe you stumble. And I had to draw on that when I was transitioning from, those sales presentations of demonstrating software and feature advantage benefit and that sort of thing, to when I was asked and invited to step on the TED stage. That was probably one of the largest rung leaps for me, because it wasn't a talk that I had done before, number one. Number two, the doubting of its relevance, the questioning of myself. And, I was very prayerful on it, practiced a lot. So I think if we're stepping into something new, it's really important to get as prepared as we can. What does that mean? That might be prepared in the content. You may not know exactly how you're going to say something, but if you'll feel confident in your facts, or in the argument you're going to make, whether that's a verbal presentation, or maybe it's a sport you want to start and you've done something like it before. So maybe you've played racquetball but never tennis, or tennis but never pickleball. And you go, I'm going to step out here and I'm going to call on the confidence that maybe I have had a few times on a tennis court to go into something completely new. So that would be my example, would be that leap. And then where I've had some level of, a rung of feeling okay with how I did something. And then I build on that. That's the way I have to do it.
Yeah. And I think it's even harder if you're out of your comfort zone. You're speaking or things that you're fairly confident in by your own power, but then you take it up a notch I think that's important with when you do have a set of skills that you do pretty easily. It's easy for me anyway to just rely on myself and my own, the gifts God's given me. But think that I can do it without him. So it's important for me to continue to push myself into areas that are a little above my comfort zone. So I know without a doubt it's not me doing the presenting or doing whatever it is that I'm entering into. It works out better. And usually the other thing I've noticed is the times where I've spoken, or even I wrote a blog the other day and I felt like it was junk. I feel like I was all over the place. And the comments I got from the first two people who read it were like, this is the most heartfelt one you've ever written. I was
wow.
What?
Yeah.
And so that's when I know that's God talking and not me. Because with the skills that I felt like I was presenting, I felt like they were crap. And then the feedback, what came through was God's words through me, and I didn't have anything. I got out of the way of that. So I guess my confidence can get in the way of relying on God to do the work sometimes, because I'm like, oh, I got this. I'm fairly capable. And that's when I get myself in trouble. Yeah. That's when I'm not doing God's thing. I'm doing my thing. And that's not at all what I want.
Yeah. The feeling of not being in the room alone, and also being comfortable, not knowing everything you need to know. I mean, I think there's a couple of questions to ask yourself too, when you're considering stepping into that place where you're not comfortable, right? First could be, what besides what could go wrong, which is you're all going to think about, what could go right? I mean, if I'm stepping into a place where I've not done something before, I can tell through absolutely my experience that the things that happen after, regardless of the outcome, was it a great talk? Was it a great, you
Mhm.
know, first attempt at something? Probably not. But when I'm on the other side of it, I now have one. I have one lap done. I've got one experience of that I didn't have
Mhm.
before. So being uncomfortable and being okay being uncomfortable is a habit, I think, that we have to be willing to step into. And there is some risk. There's some emotional risk, right? There's some, oh my gosh, people will see me. Or what if I stumble? What if I slip? What if I,
Mhm.
try water skiing and at, 4 times I can't, get up on the skis? Well, try a fifth. But at least even if the fifth time you don't, that's 5 tries you had that you didn't have. You would have just been sitting in the boat, or whatever that event is. I mean, I think that's where we really have to be willing to kind of take that risk and know that if we feel called to do it and don't feel comfortable with it, we're not going to be in there alone if we feel like we're called.
Mhm. Yeah. And the more we do a thing when we feel afraid and just trust God with the outcome, the less scary it becomes. And then you find new ways to, push yourself a little bit more. I
Yeah,
love David was confident, but his confidence came actually, he didn't really get called. He did get called by God, but what the scenario was, he kept showing up where his brothers, where Goliath would come out every day and threaten the people of Israel and kind of trash talk them, and they would all run away and refuse to fight. They were all scared of him, and so he's just a lowly kid, not even ready to fight. He's bringing food to his brothers. His dad's like, "Go take your brother some food." So he goes there, and he's just like appalled that they just keep running away and running away. He's like, "What are you guys doing around here?" And they're like, "He's really big and we're kind of scared." And he's just like, "You know what? We are the people of God. So give me a weapon or, give me something. I'm just going to go try to do it." And Saul tries to give him his armor and it's all too big and too heavy. And so he just takes a slingshot and goes out and takes what he can use, what God has given him.
yeah,
Not everybody else's stuff, not everybody else's weapons,
right,
not everyone else's armor, but what God has given to him, the whole, what's in your hand? What can you do? I
right.
can't do what you can do. Um, many people can't do what you do, but God's not asking them to do what you're doing. God's
And
asking us to do what only we can do. And that's what David could do. So he showed up and did it, and God gave him victory over that. But that's important for me to remember. God's called me to do what Heather can do with God's help.
there's a nugget I want to pull out of that. What can I do? So you assess the situation. It's an opportunity. It could be a struggle, a challenge. Maybe it's something you have to react to that's maybe tense. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of tragedy or trauma in front of you. Maybe it's a car accident or it's something that you pull up on. And what causes you to step in and try to help? Typically, it's thinking about, well, what can I do? Right?
Mhm.
I can call 911. I can step in and apply a tourniquet. I can see if there's any witnesses. I can take some picture. What can I do is, I think, that first step of not trying to do everything,
Mhm.
but incrementally, what can I do to jump in and join
Mhm.
in this thing that's new or uncomfortable or unexpected. I think a lot of it's
Yeah.
attitude as well. So
Yeah,
shall we?
I love that because actually, like you said, that's the first step is what can I do? So, you know, God expects probably you to do some things that you can do. But I've been reading this book, if anyone has ever, if you've heard of this, called The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. He's a monk, and he just talks about how he just integrates God into every single thing he does. And he says, there's a lot of things that I can't do, but I'm happy to do those things that are not easy for me, because then I know that it's God doing those things through me. And he says how he regularly prays, God, this isn't something I know how to do and I'm not comfortable doing, so you're going to have to help me do this, and just moves forward.
He wants
Whatever
our
thing it
availability,
is.
not our ability. He wants us
Right.
to be available. Yeah. I'm sorry,
So if
interrupt.
we can do it without God's help, then maybe we're not doing, I don't want to say enough, but maybe we're not doing the things we're supposed to be doing. If we can do it all on our own,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
that's not God's intention. I don't think that we can just do it all by ourselves. Like,
No.
we're not, I don't want to bother Jesus with this,
Yeah. Yeah, I found that when I don't, I usually end up in a ditch somewhere. So I'm kind of that nagging employee who comes in with multiple questions all the time. At least that's sometimes how I feel. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
let's break down confidence. We write down the word vertically, and I just wrote this before the talk. Sometimes I have the words written, we bring them up, but this one I just wrote it right before we recorded here, because it gave me some thoughts, and then this is kind of unpacking it, and maybe we just chat about this for a few minutes as we go through the letters. So what we do is we write the word vertically, and we just use the letters of the word we unpack. In this case, it's confidence, and let's just look at it. So the C, I wrote, confidence comes from action. I believe we have to move and have an experience. Maybe it's a setback, maybe it's a step forward, but I think we have to act in order for confidence to be developed, but also for it to be exposed. What do you think
Mm-hmm.
about that?
Yeah, I think that acting also can be choosing to do nothing. And sometimes I think we're foreseeing things and plowing ahead and doing so much activity that sometimes I think our best solution and our best action is to choose to sit and meditate or pray or
Sure.
turn it over. So I don't think, I don't want people to hear us saying you got to be running crazy, making 1,000 phone calls. Like, sometimes I think God's just like, just calm down.
So
So
that's an action in itself, as
exactly.
opposed to
Yeah.
being numb or unconscious of things, or just kind of being stifled is different than waiting and being
Yeah.
silent. Often it's buried in limits. I think confidence often is limited because of our self-imposed belief
Mhm.
that all the things we talked about, we're not enough,
Yeah.
we don't have what it takes, we don't have the skills. So I think that if we can believe in ourselves, even if we don't know how, and know that we're not going alone, I think that can dig that
Mhm.
up out of these limits. But I do think it's often buried in limits.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, I truly believe that confidence comes from being tested. You have to kind of step in and experience the struggle for your confidence to be exercised, so that N is never being tested. So I think sometimes our confidence is buried in the fact that
Mhm.
it's easy, honestly, for all of us, right, to stay in a zone where we're confident in where we are. And I think growing confidence means we have to go somewhere where we haven't been before.
Yep. Which we kind of talked about that already.
I think confidence, the F, is confidence is fed by little wins. I believe in that incremental step that, think about, I mean, lifting weights or working out or exercising. We start with a small amount of weight, or a small level of
Mhm.
resistance, or a shorter distance if it's a treadmill type of thing, or if it's stretching, we stretch to the space we can and a little further, and you do that enough, and the stretching becomes, we
Mhm.
become much more limber. So I think that we can feed our confidence by celebrating little wins.
Mhm. Yep.
The I is incremental movement. That kind of gets back to the celebrating little wins. If we are moving, even if it's incrementally, say we do want to pause and be more quiet in the morning time. Well, that's hard to do for more than a minute, right, when you first start. But if we want to say, look, we're going to sit in silence, let's set a timer for 30 seconds. And then the next day might be 35 seconds, and the next day maybe 45 seconds. And the next thing
Mhm.
you don't know, as long as you're incremental about it, ongoing.
Right.
So that's the I. The D, I think it's real important in confidence to digging into doubt. Like, what's causing my lack of confidence? Maybe it is my faith. Maybe it is I have a a reasonable doubt there because of a trauma that I've had in a situation where I don't naturally feel confident. In fact, I have a barrier or a bruise or a scar over that because of the of doubt that's there. I mean,
Mhm.
let's think about it. It's if we doubt ourselves, it's hard to make that step.
Yeah. And I think a lot of our doubt can come from just messages we've heard, in our family systems, or I was talking about that with a friend this morning, things I heard said to someone else in my family about their body created body images for me even today, that I can just hear those refrains. So I think it is important to kind of explore some of those things if we have nagging confidence issues in certain areas, to try to root out some of what, counter it with what God says about you, but try to rewire and root out some of the lies that you've
Yeah,
listened to.
I think what we're getting to on this point, I love what you just said, is acknowledging the fact that the confidence might be based on doubt, that we might need to go a little deeper into figuring out where that came from. And
Mhm.
that should be a healthy conversation. Like, okay, now I get it. Now I understand why I don't like darkness, or whatever. You got to kind of root out that reason. That's the D. The E then is experiencing struggles. When we're experiencing struggles, that can really impact our confidence, right? I mean, there's
Mhm.
nothing that, what does they say? There's nothing that breeds success like success. I mean, think about, in
Mhm.
real estate, right? A listing, man, you get 2 listings in a week, you're going to go out fired up for that next appointment, knowing that, hey, I just had 2 successfuls.
Mhm.
Swing and a miss a couple times in a row, and all kinds of things can happen to confidence and all of that. So when we're experiencing struggles, I think we need to be aware that that can impact our confidence, and just think back again to that cookie jar where you have had some success and you can pull that
Mhm.
out. The N in confidence, I believe, then the second N is never giving up. I think that's really important to push through um, when we least want to. I think that's the most important. It's like, I can do one more. I can stay here for 10 more seconds. I can
Mhm.
go one more lap around the track on the walk. Just never giving up will help. And then, next thing you know, you've got 4 laps in, and that's a mile. And
Mhm.
that maybe your goal is to ultimately, do a 10-mile walk. Well, once you get those 4 laps in, you're 10% of the way there. Right? You just got to think about it, never giving up. The C then is comes from a self push. I do think that just starting, whether it's, like I say, pausing, or whether it's just starting by putting the shoes on, or it's just starting by saying, I am going to read the introduction for that class I want to take and look at the syllabus, right? I'm actually going to go online. I'm going to put the credit card number in. Oh, and I'm going to hit send because I'm going to sign up for this class, or whatever that thing is. I think there's a self push that it takes, or
Mhm.
accountability partners around you, or something that helps you get moving. And then the E is engage it to grow it. I think we have to have a certain level of being confident about something, even if we're tweaking it until we peak it. Not fake
Mhm.
it till you make it, but tweak it until you peak it. You start engaging it a little bit. I can do this, and you may not know how, you may not know all the steps, but
Mhm.
you're self push, and you're saying, I'm going to engage this confidence gene, and then let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great word.
I know. That's a really good one. Yeah, we didn't even know we had that much to say on that topic.
I know. So confidence, everybody. I mean, it's for a lot of us personally. For me, I mean, I really have a lot of things that are uncomfortable. I've learned through being uncomfortable that doing more things where I am uncomfortable has helped me. It's helped me grow, become a
Mhm.
podcaster. It took me 2 years to say, yes, I'm going to do this. And then Heather calls and says, let's do a podcast. And I'm like, wow, because I had just been hesitating. And not that it's an awesome podcast. We're just out here trying to, share some words and unpack things, and, and try to improve ourselves as much as offer
Mhm.
some some experiences that we've had. I mean, that's one real example for me.
Yep. And the more we do it, the more confident we get that we don't know what we're talking about and we're just trying to figure it out. No, it's
I
good
think
to
that's
just
it. Right?
dialogue about these things because there's a lot of nuances to these words that we pick. And we like to explore all the different veins of it. So, I don't know if anyone else is listening, but we have a good time.
We do, and we are in our own laboratory trying to figure this stuff out. So Heather, it's just it's great to be with you on Can I Have a Word with You. Check out Heather's website at heathercarterwrites.com, mine at abovethechatterourwordsmatter.com. Follow us on social media. Just probably put in each of our names and you can find us. You continue to write and post your a new word. I'm going to put confidence out there. I got a couple others that I've been working on as well. So Heather, as always, it's always great to chat with you. And today was a confidence builder. I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. Yep. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Until next time, everybody. Can I have a word with you? Another episode with my partner, Heather Carter. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.